Dave, you sure you don't need Shane in the rhythm section? Homie can keep the beat.
He can sing. I've seen him sing plenty of times.
La la la.
He can rhythmically sing.
You've heard me sing on this podcast. Maybe every other episode on average.
I've heard you sing in better places too.
Okay.
All right, and I hope you've heard him sing a better song.
Sidekicks in Chicago.
Whoa.
Check it out if you don't know about it, people. Don't go there. I mean, look it up on the internet before you go there.
Earlier this week, I had to deal with a creaky door hinge.
Is that metaphorical?
And I heard Shane's...
I took care of that hinge for you, Stan. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, boss, I got rid of that creaky door hinge.
The FBI is definitely not listening to this.
But
nor is anyone else.
Well, I speaking of Shane's singing voice, I heard Shane's beautiful voice in my ear. Don't use WD-40. That's not what it's for.
I didn't know I sounded like that.
It's a cleaning agent.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I Googled best product for a creaky door hinge, and the internet said silicone spray.
Yeah, baby.
So I went to the local Home Depot. I found a can of silicone spray for $6. I bought it. The creak is gone.
Yeah, isn't it? And that's one of those things that you're like, why didn't I do this 79 months ago?
Yeah.
Every time I do something like that, it's like, why did I wait so long?
Yeah, I just do those things immediately now.
Well, it's because for the longest time, the creak wasn't waking up a baby. And then the creak started to wake the baby. And I'm not talking about Shane.
Yeah. Stanislav, I want to go back to something. Yeah. Because this is like, somehow you love to do this to me. Somehow you the one time when you should have used silicone was like, you know how people usually say silicone when they mean silicon? You reversed it somehow. Like you when you're supposed to say, I think it's silicone spray. Silicon's like what makes up computer chips.
What did I say?
Wait, these are different things?
Yeah, silicon and silicone are two different things.
No, what?
But you've also added a third one. You've started saying silicon.
Well, okay.
How are these different things?
I worked, well, they're very different things. I worked for, silicone is what's in like, things. So I worked for,
I mean like bottles of spray?
An audio visual design firm for a bit. And one of their clients was Intel. And we would work with voiceovers like directly from Intel. And so like I got the difference between silicon and silicone drilled into my brain.
Can I just give you the answer real quick so we can move on from this? Because
okay, hopefully I'm right. I would not like to be wrong on Mike.
Silicon is a natural chemical element commonly used to make electronics. Silicone is a synthetic polymer derived from silicon.
My favorite.
I see.
Okay.
So I was saying silicon, which is the
computer chip and not something you would put on your door.
Oh.
I mean, I imagine if you refined it fine enough, ground up Intel chips, AMD.
I can see Devon just retreating into himself as we're doing that.
He's like, why did I join this podcast?
If you put the computer chip in the door, that stops the door from opening. That prevents the creak, right?
See, my man Devon is very practical.
I wonder what it's like to be Devon and never have your pronunciation about anything corrected, like mine is on a
Oh,
weekly
that happens
basis.
all the time. What do you mean?
Oh, okay.
Well, English is your second language, Dan.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I like to pretend it is.
It might be. I think I learned English and Russian simultaneously, just from different sources. I think I learned English from watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action films.
Cowabunga.
And Russian from living in a Russian-speaking household.
So this whole thing reminds me of the Shatner clip saying sabotage or sabotage instead of sabotage or whatever. Do you know about that?
No.
Oh, it's very good. You should look it up. He goes, sabotage. And then people are like, no, it's not sabotage. It's sabotage. Like, it's a whole Shatner thing.
Just like this episode.
Yeah.
And I learned Russian from Soviet propaganda films. Hello and welcome to episode 293 of The Dive Down. a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago. And with me on the line from Denver, Colorado, it's the one and only Shane Beeps.
Hello, Stanislav. I'm sorry for correcting your pronunciation 2 weeks running. It's a door I really wanted to walk through on the whole silicon thing.
It's
You wanted
fine.
to creak your way through it.
Yeah, like much like my bones.
It
My
doesn't.
brain's gotta
It doesn't
creak.
actually bother me at all. I'm used to it. It's just. It's amazing how. You never let it go.
I don't want the angry emails from all the silicone fans out there.
You know what we're going to get emails about? We're going to get comments on Spotify about why are we talking so much in the pre-roll now? It was fun. It used to be a minute. It's 2 minutes. It's 4 minutes.
Yeah. Why are we talking so much in the pure roll and not introducing the Godfather Dave Harburger? That's what
Yeah, and
people
not
want to
talking
know.
a lot right now. We're just going to talk a lot right now. Was it sabotage or sabotage? That's what I want to know.
I mean-
Sabotage.
Ad Rock, Mike D, and MCA.
You know, I had a talk with some friends about this over the weekend that nobody remembers the Beastie Boys. They don't come
I
up
do.
a lot.
What are you
I mean,
talking
people
about?
do, and when you say it, you're like, "Oh yeah, that was a good song. Sabotage is great," but I feel like people don't really cite them all that much as influences at this point, which is kind of surprising and interesting.
Well, let's talk about the contemporary state of hip hop then, David.
I don't have much to say about that because I don't know anything about it. But
I was literally, this is a true story, listening to the Beastie Boys, but 2 weeks ago on the drive to the RCQ to pump myself up because I like
Oh.
listening to hype music before I play Magic tournaments.
Which album or songs are your hype songs?
I like Hello Nasty, the album, quite a bit.
It's a very good album.
Yeah. So I just I own it on compact disc, so I just popped in the CD.
maybe it's just one of those things that everybody still has affinity for, but nobody talks about anymore. Like we don't have to talk about how much we love
The
a
Beatles.
beautiful black T-shirt. Like it just is, and it's still great.
And we don't have to talk about how much we love Doomwake, aka Devon O'Donnell.
But
Who's
we
that
will
guy?
anyway.
Because it's
Yeah.
assumed that we know.
I am also known as Intergalactic's #1 fan.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Yes. I know 90% of the words on Check Your Head and Hello Nasty.
I mean, I've told you this story, I don't think on the show before, but I did see the Beastie Boys live one time. And the band that opened for them, well, one of the bands that opened for them was Money Mark, who was like a keyboard player.
Mm-hmm.
But the band that actually opened for the Beastie Boys on this tour was Tribe Called Quest, which if I have never...
My brother was at that same show. He just told me about it because
Cleveland?
Yeah, in Cleveland.
I was at that show too.
That's awesome. I can't believe I've never seen them.
Yeah, but also, there is some kind of inversion going on there.
I'm sorry for interrupting your story with my own interjection, David.
That's okay. Do you know what never interrupts your story? And is a patient and caring member of your family.
Randy?
Heavy Play. Maybe Randy. I think probably Randy, but Heavy Play is a card game and accessories brand that'll improve your gameplay and your game day. Their playmats, deck boxes, and card sleeves feature enhanced ergonomics, mobility, and protection. Heavy Play's unique Equipmag system allows you to magnetically attach your deck and dice boxes, bundle decks together, and carry all your gaming gear in a single hand so you can do the dance from Intergalactic Planetary. Coming soon. Coming now to your LGS if you go look. We got to change this ad copy. Why does it still say coming soon in the ad copy? It's been here for a year now, and you can have it anytime you want at heavyplay.com. Use our code, TheDiveDown2024, for 10% off your first order. That's Heavy Play.
Nice. Want to hear what's happening on this week's show?
It's more than I thought was happening when I left these notes a scant
Again.
36 hours ago again.
Yeah, we really should not have wasted all that time on the cold open and whatever else jib jab we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Good. I've got 4 bullets.
Okay.
Devon wins an RCQ.
Yay.
Woo. NRG Louisville results. Yay.
Meh.
Stan finishes a Pioneer League with a losing record.
Yeah.
Yay. Spoilers.
Yay!
There we go.
Yay.
But first,
Spooky spoilers.
we should housekeep. No new patrons, no new reviews.
Yeah.
but lots to promote. If you want to support our show, you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown, or support us through our online store at thedivedown.com/store. Halloween is around the corner. Dress up as a fan from your favorite Magic the Gathering podcast. If you want to support us while playing Magic Online, you can use our Mana Traders promo code through the middle of October. It's the _OBX.
Get yourself to the Outer Banks while staying inside.
If you need to double check the latest code, you can always do so in the show notes for the most recent episode. Find it there, but it is currently the _OBX. And we're talking about Nerd Rage Gaming later today. If you want to buy some of the paper cards that we're talking about in this episode, head on over to NRG's website. Use promo code DIVE8 for 8% off your order from Nerd Rage. And I want to talk about some cards with Devon, because we play a lot of the same cards. At least, there's at least 60 cards that we both own in our shared collection.
At least, minimum.
And you used some of these shared cards in a Magic tournament this week.
Like the literal ones? Like, he was like overnetted them?
Yeah, I FedEx to Devon weekly, and he UPS's back.
Is that where my rings went?
Yeah. Basically, like, Stan goes to play an RCQ on Saturday, and then after he's done with his RCQ, he overnights it, and then I go to the UPS store before the RCQ on Sunday.
We have to find a better way.
Going on. We really do, I could just drive to Ohio, I guess.
I'm in Chicago.
That wouldn't do much
Illinois.
good, since none of us are in Ohio.
We're trying to meet 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah. I mean, halfway there. It's fine. I got my cities mixed up. Anyways.
What'd you play? Where'd you go? What happened?
Okay, so
Tell me
this
everything.
weekend, I played some Magic. Over the weekend. Saturday, ended up going to an RCQ. Was mostly uneventful. I played a relatively stock list that I think I found. I want to say it was like maybe 1 or 2 cards different than the one that Dingo was playing. So relatively safe list. Ended up going 2-2, but I had to rush home because I had to play the arena qualifier.
That was interesting television.
Oh yeah, Dave was in the chat on that day. It was funny because I ended up I went to FNM on Friday, but I ended up playing a match in the one match of the qualifier play-in before I left. I won that match, and then I ended up getting home at midnight, and I had to finish the qualifier run. I 3-0'd that, so I stayed up till 2 a.m. playing arena, won the qualifier, and then I didn't realize that they have such a short time window on Saturday, and I was I was basically at the RCQ, and I'm like, do I have to just play matches on my phone? But I ended up, busting out, and then was able to get home in time to play the arena qualifier. Dave got to be, bear witness to me casting a lot of Dark Rituals and Sorens and Griefs and Reanimates.
And Necro.
Oh,
So
yeah.
It's Necro, Grief, Sorin into Vein Ripper, and that card from Warhammer. It is a wild black-white kind of Orzhov Grief timeless list.
Yeah.
Vampires.
Oh, that deck was crazy.
It was.
And ended up just losing the very, very last round to not make day 2 of that, which, fortunately enough, freed up my Sunday to play another RCQ. So after the stream on Saturday, I was kind of just, not sure which version of Energy I wanted to play. I was scrolling through Twitter, and I stumbled across this particular individual. I don't know if you've heard of this person before, but I think his name is Gerry.
It's Gary
Thompson.
Thompson.
Gary Thompson.
Gary Thompson. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, Gerry posted that he had won an RCQ on, I don't know exactly when he won the RCQ. I think it might have been Saturday, with a very, very interesting, I guess I'll call it a Gerry Boros list. And for people who don't know Gerry, he makes some interesting card choices. And there's definitely some here that we will discuss. Now, I will say, unfortunately, I was not able to source any copies of Boros Garrison. Might have been for the better, if I'm being honest, but that is one card that I did not play.
You didn't have any Titan players you could call?
No.
On Sunday morning? Nobody on speed dial who'd be like, yeah, I got three different artworks of that ready for you.
Yeah, 5 play sets or whatever.
Yep.
But let's talk about, exactly what some of these card choices that might be a little bit different than what you're used to from Boros. So the most notable change is if you look at the sideboard, there's no Gigantha. Where'd Gigantha go? So the reason that there's no Gigantha is because Gerry's playing Skyclave Apparition. So 2 in the main and 2 in the sideboard. The full 4 copies in the 75. And I was listening to the podcast that he does with Dave Shields, and he had mentioned on an episode of that podcast that he really wanted to find a card that was able to exile both the One Ring and Flage. And there's just nothing that does that, with the exception of Skyclave Apparition.
Does Static Prison not do that?
It does. So Static Prison does do that, which, you know, a lot of people, more of the online list played like the full 4 copies of Static Prison. But and Gerry kind of said this as well, I kind of hate Static Prison because I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It feels like there's so many situations where you find yourself wanting to use energy on something else, whether that's Guide of Souls or Galvanic Discharge, or, you know, paying a little bit extra into Raptor, especially now that you're a One Ring deck. There's going to be situations where you need that extra energy to fuel into Raptor, and you don't have that to pay for Prison. So you kind of want a more stable way to remove those threats.
And also Skyclave Apparition gets rid of them permanently.
Yes.
Let's not forget. And Static Prison has the downside of when you finally decide you're not going to pay for it, or when somebody, whatever, engineering explosives or something weird to get rid of your Static Prison, their permanents come back. So.
Right. Yeah, so Skyclave Apparition, and then also with the kind of more recent uptick in Blue-Black Frog, another way to exile Frog, pretty good, because a lot of your removal is red-based, right? Lightning Bolt, Galvanic Discharge.
Yeah.
So that's that. So that's as far as the biggest main deck change is concerned. And so the next card, which is one that I had mentioned previously, which Stan wanted to have a discussion on, Boros Garrison. So usually when you hear the word Boros and Garrison together, you might assume there's probably some Primeval Titans involved. Nope, this is just, this is what we call honest Boros Garrison. Boros Garrison for value. So I think the concept behind Boros Garrison is because you're now a ring deck, right? Gerry there's 4 rings in the 75, 3 in the main, 1 in the board. Frequently you need to get the 4 mana on time, right? The ring is a card that is much, much better when you cast it on curve and not have to wait an extra turn or 2 to cast it, like hit your land drops. And what Boros Garrison lets you do is it's sort of like card advantage in a weird way, where, and you know, if you've played like Ravnica Limited in the past, this might ring a bell, where it's 2 land drops, but at the cost of it coming into play tapped. So for example, if you have a 3-land hand that's like 2 basics and a Boros Garrison, that hand, even if you don't draw your 4th land, that hand still casts the ring on turn 4. So it's a way to like get an extra mana source into the deck, but not actually add an extra land, if that makes sense. So I think that's the big theory there. So yeah, and that's now, it is kind of awkward because there's Boros Garrison and Blood Moon in the same deck, but you know, you just kind of live with it, right?
Oh, okay.
And that we do.
That's reassuring.
Yeah. I mean, this is weird. I'll be curious to see how many people pick this up, since Karus are famously not good, right? But, you know, I mean, no, I'm not going to question Gerry. And you want an RCQ. Well, I guess you didn't have these in your deck, but you want an RCQ with it. So I guess we'll see if people go for it. Who knows what this could lead to if all of a sudden, you know, these soul lands or these Karus are good.
So, I mean, because you won without the garrisons, I think that indicates that maybe they're not the secret sauce to this list. That, like, maybe Skyclave Apparition is part of the equation. It also, like, stands out to me that you're playing an Unstable Amulet again. A 1-of, sure, but, like, that's a card that started as a 4-of, and it kept going down and down and down. We're back to 1. Was that useful for you to like draw it occasionally, I guess?
It was pretty good. I mean, Unstable Amulet's one of those cards that it's powerful, but similar to Static Prison, it kind of asks you to use your energy in maybe a way that you don't want to use. And it has the similar issues to Prison, where you're just kind of flooded with things to use your energy on, but not enough ways to actually generate the energy. Amulet, it's sort of more of that. I think he's mostly playing it over the second bombardment because he would rather split them and draw one of each in a game than draw 2 copies of either one of them, because they're cards that just generally get worse in multiples. So, it's better to have a little bit more of a split so you don't actually ever draw them or draw 2 copies of the same card. But yeah, no, the Unstable Amulet came up a couple of times. The other thing that was interesting to me is the removal spells. So there's 2 main deck copies of Chain of the Rocks and 0 copies of Lightning Bolts.
Devon, I've been waiting since 2014 for us to be able to play Chain to the Rocks again.
It's good.
My friend. Con Standard is calling. Where are my Butcher of the Hordes? Let's do this.
I'm in. Yeah, that was that was a very, very big statement to me with 0 copies of Lightning Bolt, because I think that's the first time I'd ever seen that. I have seen main deck Chain to the Rocks. I think Dingo I saw Dingo playing that a little bit, but no bolts was really interesting. And I think that really comes down to kind of the bigger picture, going back to what we were talking about earlier, where more Psychic Frogs, bolt lines up so poorly against Psychic Frog.
Yeah.
And you just kind of don't need the reach. The threats that people are playing are not as weak to Lightning Bolt.
Yeah. And also the reach isn't helping you out because you're playing a slightly different game now, thanks to the One Ring.
Yeah.
I do feel like this argument that Bolt's bad against Frog is a little dubious, because your whole deck is good against Frog. Like, who cares about that one card lineup? And Bolt is still, it's great in the mirror, which is very popular. I don't know, like, not needing the reach. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. I'll need to test this theory myself, because
it's not like we're totally eschewing red removal spells here. There's still 4 Galvanic Discharge in this list, so it's not like we got, we completely swapped over or something. I think it might be even more to the fact that you don't need the reach. You're either killing people with a ton of creatures, or you're outdrawing them with the One Ring, and you really don't care about drawing, or you're helixing them over and over again with Flage. Like, maybe that card's just not doing enough for its slot.
Did you play against Jeskai or any control decks? Because I feel like Bolt is actually pretty useful there in response to the One Ring. Like, you bolt them and then you're practically adding more burden counters in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing about that is they're also a Flage deck, so they can sort of once they've gotten to the stage of the game where they are starting to cast Flage every turn, it doesn't really matter how many bolts you have, because basically their Flages are sort of negating your bolts. The other thing is, you, like Dave said, you still have the 4 discharges, and you still have enough 1-mana removal spells. Like, if you look at the composition of a lot of these lists, they're usually on, I want to say most are on 8, I think, which is, I think a lot of Moda lists are on 4 Static Prison, but 4 Static Prison, maybe 3 Discharge, 2 Bolt, or something like that. We're on 7, right? So it's 4 Galvanic Discharge, 2 Chain, 1 Static Prison. So still 7 1-mana removal spells, but you kind of go a little bit, you're basically trading those removal spells for Skyclaves. So you're maybe you have a little bit less 1-mana interaction, but then you have more of the flexible interaction up the curve with the Skyclaves. What's interesting to me is what I was kind of thinking before I saw this Gerry list. I was thinking that, what if we kind of made, with the One Ring drawing you so many cards, what if we made it kind of more of a burn deck where we just played 4 Flage, 4 Lightning Bolt, and just had as much reach as possible to draw into with the One Ring? I was thinking maybe there's something along those lines. Obviously, this is kind of the complete opposite of that approach,
right.
But I was wondering if that was maybe something that could be done as well.
So it also stands out to me that this sideboard is full of one-ofs. Some of them, I think we know how to play Magebane Lizard, and we know how to play Wear and Tear. But Aven Interrupter, a card I think very few modern players have cast.
Mm-hmm.
What's that for?
So I think, and again, this is all kind of just theory, but this is the way that I look at this deck list. And I've known Gerry for a while. I kind of interacted with him before and seen his deck list. He tends to, like I said, I think the main deck 1 Bombardment, 1 Amulet is a perfect example of this. He likes to split a lot of his, split a lot of the decision points. And I think that if he's dedicated 2 specific slots to Storm, which was 1 Aven Interrupter and 1 Deafening Silence. So Aven Interrupter, the text on it, it says when it enters the battlefield, it says 2/2 flash for 3 with flying. ETB, you plot a spell. I don't know if it's only opponents, but you plot a spell.
It's just exile target spell. When Aven Interrupter enters the battlefield, exile target spell, it becomes plotted.
Yep.
Yes. And then it says spells your opponents cast from graveyards or from exile cost 2 generic more to cast. So it's that second half that does some stuff. Yeah.
Yep, that is the important part against Storm. So, whenever they're trying to cast stuff from the graveyard with Past in Flames, or if they're trying to cast stuff from exile off of Ren's Resolve or Reckless Impulse, that is what's taxing them. Funny enough, I also played against Rhinos with the Aven Interrupter, and that lineup of when they go turn 3 Shardless Agent, you respond to the Cascade trigger and play the Aven Interrupter, and they just can't cast their Footfalls. That was tough. I felt bad, beating the Rhinos player, but yeah,
sometimes you gotta.
Sideboard's got some weird one-ups. There's also like one Reprieve, 1 Solitude, 1 Fear Fire Foes, which I presume is there for the mirror match. I didn't get to do the thing, but that card, I gotta tell you, that card seems... I haven't actually gotten to do it yet, but it seems insane in the mirror match if you can pull it off.
I assumed it was for the One Ring.
That too, yeah.
I'm going to read this card real quick. It's X generic and a red. It's from Lord of the Rings. It's uncommon. Fear Fire Foes. It's a sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. Fear Fire Foes deals X damage to target creature and 1 damage to each other creature with the same controller. So you can get rid of a whole lot of tokens with this thing, and also, as Stan said, negate the One Ring trigger. I think this is like another card that snuck into the Lord of the Rings set that actually has relevant text against other things, but also the One Ring. So, because you can just cast it for a single red if you want to and do no damage and just negate the ring trigger. So,
yeah, it kind of just does everything.
I guess this replaces that, like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's that single red sorcery that deals 1 damage to opponent and each creature they control.
In the festivities.
That's the one.
Yeah.
All right, so real quick, as far as the rundown of the event itself, round 1, lost to Frog 0-2, and then I didn't lose again. Beat Burn 2-0, Tron, Domain Rhinos, the mirror match, and then the top 8 was Jeskai, Gorios, and Jeskai again. All in all, that was pretty good. I really do believe in the Skyclave apparitions. Like they're really good. Like I said, they're good ways to kill the One Ring and Flage. Would play again. Maybe I'll try to get some Boros Garrisons next time. We'll see what happens.
Sweet. We are slowly turning into the Energy podcast.
Well, congrats, Devon. I'm trying really hard. I'm playing another RCQ in 11 days,
but who's counting?
Hopefully I'll see you in Portland.
That's enough time to get Boros Garrisons.
That's for sure. And an extra copy of the One Ring from Dave. All right, shall we talk about NRG Louisville really quick?
Sure. Let's just hop right into the meta.
Saturday, Modern 10K. The metagame was very diverse. The most popular 2 decks, 14 copies each, about 12% of the field, was Jeskai Control and Dimir Murktide, followed by Boros Energy. I think it's not surprising to see Boros and Control in the top 3, and maybe Dimir too is like growing in popularity.
This is such an NRG metagame.
It really is, yeah.
Yes, the fact that Control is like the most popular deck in the room.
2 decks in the room, really.
Yeah. I mean, Murktide's sort of Control, sort of not, I think, really, at this point, right? It's kind of mid-rangey to me.
Would you say it's tempo, David?
It's like shadow. No, I think you're right. It's kind of shadowy.
We're gonna have that conversation again.
I mean, Devon, thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, even if you combine Boros and Mardu, which we've tended to do in the past, it's not even out, like those 2 combining are not even outshadowing the 14 by that much. It gets to 17, so.
Yeah. That's good, though. That's good. I'm happy that they're closer. That's all.
Yeah.
After Boros Energy, next most popular deck with 9 copies was Esper Gorios, followed by Mardu Energy with 7 copies. So if you combine the energy decks, that's 17. So that would be the most popular deck in the room, but perhaps they're different enough. And then we have a few decks at 5 copies apiece: Ruby Storm, Jeskai, Dress Down, and Eldrazi Tron. You have a smattering of other fairly popular decks: Domain Zoo, Amulet Titan. We got a couple Scapeshift decks, a couple Samwise Gamgee combo decks, and then a ton of one-ofs, 24 one-ofs to make up for a 21% other bucket. So nothing is really taking up too much of the pie here, which is perhaps reassuring until we look at the win rate matrix. And then there's some very startling numbers there.
I'll say.
So if you sort the win rate matrix on mtgdex.net for this tournament by most games played, the biggest sample size is Dimir Murktide with 83 matches and a 52% win rate. Very Murktide numbers. 61 matches played by Boros Energy, 70% overall win rate.
Pretty good. Ran pretty good.
It basically had no bad matchups. Like, it lost a match against Mill, it lost a match against Eldrazi and Lotus Breach and Esper Control, but like everything else is above 50.
I'm going to throw one thing out here,
Please.
which is I'm a little suspect of this data. Did we independently verify this other than this website somehow?
What?
Did we try to look at somewhere else and see where their numbers were coming from?
David, I took a screenshot and I pasted it.
I mean, I think that's fair. I've done similar many times, but only because with a 70% win rate, the fact that there's a single Boros Energy deck in the top 8 would be quite a run of bad breakers. Like,
That would be kind of crazy, right?
like 9 through 16 must all be Boros Energy decks. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole here because we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, you do.
But
You know you want to, Dave.
Well,
it is what it is.
Taking the bait.
honestly, here's my one take on this.
yeah,
I don't think you can really register Frogtide and feel super confident in a room full of energy. Like, I've long felt that energy is favored there, and
Many people are saying.
for it to be the tied for the most popular deck in the room at the start of the tournament, when you knew Boros Energy is like super prevalent in the metagame in general, I think was kind of a risky decision. And let's just take this win rate matrix at face value, though I think it's probably correct to be skeptical.
I will interject and say that, Dave, you are right in that basically most of the top 16 is Boros Energy.
is it? Okay.
Like, I'm looking at in the 9th place, 13th place, 15th place, 16th place, 17, 18. There's quite a bit.
Okay. Well, maybe.
I mean, it's like a 7-round tournament, right? So,
Yeah.
I will also note, like, that 70% win rate is in part based on a really impressive performance against the Jeskai decks. Energy had a winning record against both Jeskai Dress Down and just regular Jeskai Control, and that used to be the problem matchup. And maybe it's the One Ring, maybe it's Sun Cleanser, maybe it's Blood Moon, probably everything kind of coming together. The Boros matchup, I think, has gotten a lot less free for the control decks.
for sure. One of the things that like upsets me a bit is, so a lot of people have it out for the One Ring, including maybe me, maybe some people on this podcast, right? But then I look at things that, like Eldrazi Tron, like the Jeskai control decks that are playing this, right? And these decks are, I mean, this is, one event, a fairly small sample size, but, these decks I think are effectively almost barely hanging on to, middling performances. Like, Eldrazi Tron is not the scourge of Modern. It's like a fun deck that people who like to play that style of deck are going to run out there and potentially do quite well with, right? But I don't think the One Ring is like making this deck busted. The One Ring is clearly not making like the Jeskai energy decks busted. And so this just kind of reminds me of where my head was at a few weeks ago, which is like, are these decks only viable because they have the One Ring to like hold things down a little bit? And sometimes I look at this and I'm just like, ugh, like, have we just sort of painted ourselves into a corner in Modern right now with like the power level expectations to even show up at the table?
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I'd spent a lot of time playing Boros before people started adding the ring to it, and I, played a couple tournaments this past weekend with the One Ring, and I mean, it feels like a different game when you cast that card. It does not feel like you are playing the same game, and yeah, it's really really good.
Surprise! Many people are saying.
Many people are
Many
saying
months
people
later.
are
One Ring is
saying-
good. Is it really that long ago?
Yeah, I think so. Last July, last
Oh
June.
my goodness.
The other deck and number I want to call out, and this is going to feel like I'm punching down, but Ruby Storm, 25% overall match win rate.
Oops.
Jiminy
Jinkies.
Jillikers. Jinkies.
How do you have a lower win rate than Burn?
I didn't know it was possible.
Because no one registered Burn.
Burn's not even in this universe anymore, Devon.
I know.
That's parallel. That's Earth 1 or whatever, whatever that is. It's not even, we're not even in there anymore.
Is Ruby Storm the new Burn?
I think it might be. It might be. Let's do the top 8.
After the Swiss, the top 8 had Cliff Boyardee on Jeskai, Dress Down. It wasn't until I was looking at their deck list that I realized that the Dress Down decks don't play any energy cards, including Wrath of the Skies. It's playing Supreme Verdict.
Okay.
Now you know.
There you go.
Second place, Bob Culp on Boros Energy. And then beyond that, I don't know if this is actually third, fourth, fifth, but the rest of the top 8 had Hunter Ovington on Samwise Gamgee combo. Nick, the Hansman Roller on Mardu Energy. Logan Underwood on Grixis Shadow.
I'm all about Detective Phoenix. It's cool to see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, so 23 creatures in this deck. Like, this is not your
No,
Uncle's
it's slightly different.
Grixis Shadow deck. And Detective Phoenix plus Street Wraith looks like a pretty nice little mini combo.
Oh yeah, it's fun. Yeah, throw in Nethergoyf and you got a real stew going. You know what I'm saying?
After that, we had Charles Eiler on Eldrazi Tron, Patrick Narsavage on Espergorios, and Sean Gallagher on Demir Murktide.
8 different decks.
7.5, 2 energy decks.
Yeah.
And then the winner, Bob Culp on Boros NRG.
NRG at the NRG.
I
Pretty
do
appropriate.
Yeah, I do feel like, Devon, you probably should have played this tournament since you could have left with a 70% win rate. Maybe you would have made it to the Players' Championship over in Buffalo
Perhaps.
Grove, Illinois.
Perhaps. I would have had to fly there, so.
Oh, you can't fly into Buffalo Grove.
Depends what you're flying.
You can't fly into Louisville though. You guys know who Robert Culp is?
No.
No.
You don't know who Robert Culp is?
The Magic player?
I suggest you look him up sometime. Robert Culp is like a 70s character actor who is in like tons of stuff. And so every time I see this name, Bob Culp, I'm like, Robert Culp, who's been long passed away, I'm sure. This could be his grandchild probably, but yeah, look up. You'll recognize the face. Anywho, next mini bucket. Let's keep it moving. We got spoilers to talk about.
Robert Bob Culp.
He was in a lot of Columbo episodes, for what it's worth. That's why I became familiar with him.
Oh, this guy. I know him old. I don't know him young.
Yep. Do you think he would like a Rakdos Aggro deck?
He would like a Boros Energy deck.
Yeah, Robert Culp was the villain generally in Columbo, so
So more of a Mardu player, maybe?
maybe.
Stan, you played a deck that you liked a lot, surely, right? You love this deck?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I also hate it.
Stop pretending like I did.
Really?
Following up on last week's episode, I decided to try Rakdos Aggro, played a couple tournament practice games just to figure out what I'm supposed to do with the cards.
This is a
and then-
Pioneer.
In Pioneer, yes. And then I did my due diligence and I fired up a league, played 5 matches, finished 1-4.
Okay, so did you not like it because it performed poorly? Or did you not like it because you felt it was a bad deck?
I did not like it because I was unimpressed with the half-baked synergies that I think this deck is built on.
Half-baked.
That was kind of how it felt in my hands. By the end of the league,
Most
I
decks
did
feel
feel
half-baked in my hands, I'll tell you that.
And that's why you're much better at baking bread, Shane. Yours is always perfect golden brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people don't bake their bread long enough.
Beautiful scoring.
That's what I always hear.
Here's my take. And Devon, I kind of just want to bounce my ideas and impressions off of you because I think you've played with this deck a little bit as well. And maybe you can check my analysis. But I just kind of felt like the deck was trying to do a little bit of too many different things and sort of ended up being a master of none in the process. Where on the one hand, you have like a fling synergy where you're trying to make like mice and slick shot show-offs really big, and then you fling them for lethal, but you don't have enough fling cards to support that, A. Then you have like this red pump spell thing instead of what used to be white pump spells in the heroic decks. But because these are strictly pump spells, they kind of open you up to like more 2-for-1 and blowouts as opposed to the white pump spells that served as actual protection. And then like you have Reckless Rage, which also I felt like played pretty poorly with Heartfire Hero, and that's often your only game one removal, Reckless Rage is. So you end up in these situations where you have to open on a Heartfire Hero, your opponent plays any other creature, you have Reckless Rage in hand, and then you're just kind of like at a standstill, and it gets hard to develop from there or actually start getting damaged through aggressively enough.
Yeah, and on that same note, specifically with Reckless Rage, not only plays poorly with Hero, it also plays poorly with Slick Shot, because Slick Shot has only front prowess, not back prowess.
Yeah. Big arms,
it's the new term,
legs.
right? It's the new term.
I can't.
What?
I love it. Okay, we're using it from
Back
now on.
prowess.
It only has front prowess, not back.
Yeah, Slick Shot only focuses on the vanity muscles. It's not really
Sure.
working the core.
It's
Sure.
always
Yeah.
bench day.
No glutes.
I mean, am I being too hard on it? Like, is this just a surface level assessment, or what did you find in your testing with the deck?
Oh, I hate this deck. I think it's I don't understand how anybody, like how so many people play it. So here's my big kind of like, and it's basically exactly what you said, where it's trying to be, so like you're sort of trying to take some parts of a prowess deck where you have the prowess creatures, Slick Shot, Show Off, Monastery Swift Spear, so on and so forth. But you don't have the best parts of the prowess deck, which is the burn spells, Play with Fire, whatever the Skewer, Wizard's Lightning, whatever burn spells they play. So you have kind of like sort of the good part of the prowess deck. And then when it comes to the heroic side of things, you have sort of the good part of the heroic deck, which is kind of the pump spells. But in order for the heroic package to materialize, the reason heroic was such a good deck was not because it played a stack of pump spells. It was because it played a stack of protection spells, God's Willing, Lauren's Escape, and all these kinds of things. So you are fundamentally flawed because you have all of these pump spells, but you don't have a way to back it up. You have no protection, and you are just sort of at the mercy of whether or not your opponent draws a single copy of Fatal Push. And if they do, most of the time your draw just fails. So like there's like the structural issues with that. What the deck I think is doing reasonably well is it is more aggressive. Like has a faster goldfish than the prowess in the heroic deck. So like if the format is speeding up and is less about interaction, then I think it's a good place. And I think that's why the deck did so well for a couple weeks, because people were not prepared for it. But you know, if people just put Fatal Push in their deck, they will beat this deck.
I totally agree. You took the words out of my mouth. I feel like the appeal is that it has like a very explosive start sometimes and a faster clock in like other aggro matchups. But just like any mid-ranger control deck can really slow this deck down from doing anything.
Agreed.
So lesson learned. I feel like if I'm going to play Prowess in Pioneer right now, I would still look at the red-green deck. Like I felt like that deck actually had more legs, more wings, bigger arms.
Doesn't skip leg day.
Yeah.
Does not.
Sharp beak.
Yeah. Well, I'm bummed about this.
And it has Blossoming Defense.
That's right.
Yeah.
A real protection spell.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed about this because when we talked about Rakdos last week, I was like, oh, I'll definitely fire one off, and I didn't get a chance to. I'm glad that you tried it out for science, both you, Stan and Devon. So
The thing
We'll
is,
see.
Dave, if you're a Shadow gamer, you would hate this deck. This is not a Shadow deck. This is a burn
Really?
deck.
Yeah.
Creature burn, no less.
Yeah.
Creature burn.
And there's a lot more life gain spells against creature burn.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pioneer's just a different environment.
All right, shall we go on to spoilers?
I mean,
Spoilers.
welcome to our second spoiler episode for Duskmourn. Only 45 minutes into our episode.
You know what? I
Well-
like that. I like that we have news and then a feature on the back end. Or I guess opinion.
Yes.
This is the editorial.
You know who doesn't like that? Whoever is editing the show.
It's perfect.
But you know what I do have to say about this, though, is that I know that we added a bunch of content before the spoilers, and usually we just do an episode that's all spoilers. I'm looking at our list again right now, and I feel like this could be a pretty svelte conversation.
Dave, you added 25 cards.
I did, but I've also just gone through and prioritized them based on things other people gave notes on.
Okay.
And moving Devon's cards up to the top of the list. And I actually think there's only about 12 cards to talk about. So let's see how it goes.
Okay.
I'm going to take us through the discussion. I'm going to throw it to Devon occasionally since he threw some cards on the list.
I got
but
some
let me
stuff
go
from
through
last
here.
week we didn't talk about. I didn't see you move those up.
Okay,
'Cause they're
well,
not good.
right.
Well, what's the opposite of preferential treatment, Shane?
Deferential? Mm-hmm.
No. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. Actually, I'm going to defer to Devon. Devon,
Okay.
if you were going to pick one card that you wanted to talk about from that we didn't talk about last week or that you didn't get a chance to talk about yet from this set, what would you like to talk about?
Well, one of my favorite cards in the set. I wanna shout out my boy Rip Spawn Hunter. He's ripped.
Also
So-
does not skip leg day.
No, definitely does not. Definitely does not have only front prowess. So Rip is 2, a green and a white for a 4/4 legendary creature, human survivor, and has the survival mechanic, which is at the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is its power. Reveal any number of creature and or vehicle cards with different powers from among them into your hand, put the rest in the bottom in a random order. So I've been experimenting in the past. I have experimented in the past with various like Celestia vehicles. So the vehicle's core of just elves, chariots, like green 3-drops, whatever, that's fine. Lovestruck Beasts. And then you can kind of mix and match the secondary color. Red gives you a Crowan War and Reckless Stormseeker. White gives you Skyclave Apparition, Voice of Resurgence, stuff like that. And I think that Rip is a really big draw to that because you have, like, if you look at cards that it can find in terms of like Skyclave Apparition, Essica's Chariot, Smuggler's Copter, Lovestruck Beast, all 4 of those have different powers. So and those are most likely all going to be 4-ofs in your deck. Maybe not the Lovestruck Beast, but I don't know. It just seems like it is good value that's statted reasonably well. 4/4 for 4 is not too bad, and you can give it effective haste if you have a vehicle in play with whether a copter or a chariot. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I took a look at this card too. I wasn't sure if there was a shelf for it, but I'm glad that you're mentioning that green-white vehicles could be a thing, because this does look to me like it could draw a lot of cards. You know, if tapped, reveal the top X cards of your library where X is its power. It comes with 4.
Yep.
Like, you're looking at a lot here. Maybe you're drawing 2 cards off of it most of the time when you look at this. So I don't know. I think this is a cool card for sure. I'm glad to hear that there's something for your kind of one of your favorite archetypes in Pioneer vehicles.
What kind of deck would that be? How do you find the right balance of vehicles versus creatures to make both a vehicle strategy work and for this to actually function within there so that you're drawing cards off the survival mechanic?
I mean, it would be very similar to, like you've seen the red-green vehicles decks in Pioneer. It would be similar to those where it's like your vehicles are probably just 4 copter, 4 chariot, maybe 1 or 2 boats, and which also has 6 power, so that's another different power for Rip. And then from there, it's like elves, Voice of Resurgence, Skyclave Apparition, Rips, Lovestruck Beasts, stuff like that. And then maybe a couple removal spells like Get Lost or something like that.
Yeah, I think this card's cool. I think a decent amount has to go right for it to be awesome, but like I think this is like a fun card that you can build around and include in like the strategy, which is a good thing.
One thing about the vehicle strategies as they existed is they didn't really have like a ton of card advantage. Right? Like it was tough to draw out of when you kind of ran out of gas. It was like a Gruul deck. When you ran out of gas, you kind of run out of gas. Occasionally you get extra 2-for-1 value off of your boat or something like that. But this certainly gives you a whole other thing that, to recover with.
Can we talk about how Ghostbusters is not a horror movie? Like the art on this card is clearly just Ghostbusters inspired, and it's not a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't again. This set is not horror, right? It's spooky stuff from the golden age of VHS. I think is what it really is. And there's a ton of Ghostbusters stuff in here, and there's a Ghostbusters secret layer. So it definitely made space.
Can we not talk about that careful study?
Yeah, the careful study is iconic, sir. Can I pick a card to talk about now? I want to talk about Sheltered by Ghosts. A generic and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature you control when Sheltered by Ghosts enters. Exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghosts leaves the battlefield. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has lifelink and ward 2.
Love this.
This is a lot of text for Devon's typing and stuff right now. Devon thought this card is fake. No, this card is a real aura that can be played in Pioneer. I have enjoyed auras at different times, black-white auras. I like to play blue-white auras occasionally in Pioneer, even green-white sometimes. And this seems pretty good for a deck that the last time it was seen was playing Heliod's Judgment as a piece of interaction, where now you get to buff one of your creatures, give it ward to help protect it from dying, get rid of any target permanent for a long time, and it gets lifelink too. This is just a good aura, right?
Yeah, it's busted.
It's busted.
It really is. Like I when I read this card for the first time, I had to reread it like 4 or 5 times because I legitimately thought it was not a real card. And specifically, like Dave mentioned, the Pioneer application with Light Pause, because you can search this off of Light Pause, which is nuts. Like the fact that you can play a 2-mana aura, fetch this, kill their thing, and then I don't know. This card seems crazy. And if there is a Boggles deck in Pioneer, it will have 4 copies of this card for sure.
Yeah, I was looking at this card, and honestly, I was even like, is this good enough for Modern Boggles?
It's close
because it gets rid of the One Ring and gets rid of Flage and lots of stuff that might be annoying to you as a Boggles player. And if we're playing a lot of target or removal these days, guys, Boggles can be there. Boggles can be there. I don't know much about that deck in Modern though, so I've never played it.
I've literally played against Boggles with Boros Energy.
Okay.
It did not go well for Boggles.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, I kind of think it's better. It makes more sense in Pioneer to me, and I'll be excited to see if this brings back any number of different Auras decks that people could try to play.
I just love the design space of adding Oblivion Stone. Is that like this effect? The white enchantment?
Ring. Oblivion Ring.
Oblivion Ring, thank you. I love the design space of like adding the O-Ring effect to cards that do other stuff. And we saw that Untouch the Spirit Realm in the past, which saw like a little bit of like fringe Modern 4-color play. And I love that we're trying it here as well, because like it's a powerful effect in limited, and adding this type of added utility I think could push it into constructed play too.
All right.
I have a card that was on my list for last week. We can get to it, and Dave, you handily have it on the list this week, which is Screaming Nemesis.
Oh, yeah.
2 and a red for a 3/3 spirit. It has haste. Whenever Screaming Nemesis is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game.
I know. What does this card mean? What does this mean?
It means it's a pretty good 3-mana creature. There's a lot of text on that card.
I think it means you get like a little square with the Screaming Nemesis art and the sidebar of your arena battlefield.
Yep. Like a Planeswalker emblem.
Here's what I'm going to say to you guys. Is it spirits? We've seen it before. Can we see it again?
I mean,
Is it this and Eidolon?
I mean, this card does. I mean, being a spirit, I think is
marginal.
It's very marginal, but I think like the effect is good, right? Like it's a good sideboard option potentially against something like Silhouette Angels. It's just potentially good. I don't know about that. Like,
yeah, the only thing about this in a Spirit Shell is that you can play it with Flash with Rattle Chains, which means you can surprise them with a block that they take damage from, and then they don't gain life anymore.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, but like the text on this is just good. Like it's very hard to prevent this effect. So it's almost like some kind of, it's not necessarily like a 3-mana lightning bolt that says you can't gain life, but it's similar.
See, I don't know. I like this card, but I'm questioning how are we triggering this? Because a lot of decks that gain a lot of life don't tend to have a lot of damage-based or like damage-based removal. They don't get into combat that much. They have flying creatures. So I don't really know how are we triggering this?
You attack them?
Vanilla 3/3, but it has to be dealt damage.
Oh, combat damage is not dealing damage.
Correct.
Oh, well, this card's not as good.
Right. I kind of read this as this card has unblockable more than anything else.
Yeah, that's
basically
fair.
Because people will just have to take the damage over and over again if they really care about the life gain thing. So yeah, I still think it's an interesting card, and I still think it could be somewhere. But the card that we have exists that's like this is Boros Reckoner. Actually, if people wanted to do combos and you wanted to play 8 of these things, now we do have 8 of them in Pioneer. If you want to try it, but I don't know if I want to try it.
Devon, 2 words: reckless rage.
Oh, okay. All right, you're cooking.
Yep, that's a good one too.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
But Dave, I like how you're like, is this spirits? I'm out here thinking like, is this rhinos? Because it's 3 mana.
You can fire ice it.
You can fire ice it. And I almost I wonder if you could play it. It is insanity. It's Sparta. I wonder if you can play it against Flage decks.
Maybe.
Because they don't want to Flage it. And that's it. Like it's a haste. It's hasty.
And they can't block it. They can't block it.
And it's hasty. So like it's potentially good against control for that reason. And it just makes you wonder.
I don't know. It's an interesting card for sure. It was definitely on my radar.
Plus, it's $24. Like, it's got to be good, right?
It's $24.
United States dollars?
What? Can we talk about the other most expensive card in this set?
Oh, actually, it's only $15. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we're not going to talk about the most expensive card in the set. Don't want to talk. Forget it. Meat Hook Massacre 2. There's nothing to say about Meat Hook Massacre 2, really.
Yeah. The sequel's worse.
Stan, you want to pick a card? Do you have one in mind, or?
Well, Trial of Agony, I thought was a pretty interesting red sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
Single red. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by the same opponent. That player chooses one of those creatures. Trial of Agony deals 5 damage to that creature. The other can't block this turn.
You think there'd be some like interesting rules lawyering on this? Like in a tournament setting where it's like, they chose this card, they chose this creature, and not this one.
Oh, you mean, yeah, them the way that they choose it. Yeah, they say, well, I'm going to choose this one to not block. And they're like, you chose this one.
Yeah, exactly. Like they targeted this.
I did put this card on the list mostly because I thought it was one of the only single mana cards that was reasonably worth talking about. Just because it felt kind of powerful. But I will say there is a fatal flaw in this card. There's several, not to mention the player that the opponent chooses what happens. It also has to be 2 targets. It's not up to 2 targets. And so it is is much more difficult to employ because of that. However, I still think this could be potentially like a card that comes in versus like a mid-range deck. If you're aggro, if you know that they're going to have a couple of big threats around, it killed Sheoldred randomly out of decks for 1 mana, which is like not the worst thing in the world, but it has to be against a deck that is playing many creatures and not just a few creatures, right? So that's why I was kind of like, maybe this lets you kill something and then also just kind of keep attacking at the same time for a single mana, but it's very unreliable. It might be very unreliable.
Yeah, a lot of stuff has to go just right.
Yeah.
Unwieldy, I think is the
Unwieldy.
word that I would. It's hard because you need to have, you want to play against a deck that puts at least 2 creatures into play, but you want one of them to be worth killing. But then you also have to care about them not being able to block. It's like, it seems like a lot of stuff has to go right, but I don't know. Maybe like you were saying, mono red against Shieldred or something like that could be a good spot.
Yeah.
I mean, this looks to me like mono red or a prowess deck against other like decks that care about the board.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think mid-range was a thing.
Yeah, because like to me, it almost doesn't matter whether one of those creatures is worth killing. I like that this is a single spell card that gets 2 bodies out of the way for you to swing.
Exactly. That's what I thought about it too.
Okay. Like it's not really a 2-for-1, but it's like a virtual 2-for-1, and I think that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
And what's interesting too is like you can also, with some extra gravy, like you sort of force bad blocks, right? Like, let's say you're playing some enigmatic, like, green or red-green mid-range deck, right? And they have a beefer, they have another like decent creature, and you force them to block with their mana elves or take like 12 damage, right? And so like they lose their mana acceleration, and it doesn't have to be that exact scenario, but there's a lot of scenarios you can set up where it's like, you're going to lose these valuable like 1-drops unless you block like a whole boatload of damage. I mean, at the same time, they can also turn around and maybe do something to you if they're presenting a big body that you may just, not able to block that turn, but maybe you got the, Lovestruck Beast from 5 years ago off the table or something like that.
To quote Jonathan Lennon, "You're gonna lose that girl."
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
All right. Devon, anything else you want to throw on the list from here?
Let's do a really easy one. This one's going to be a breeze. Altanak, the Thrice-Called. You call the name thrice 3 times. So it
like
is
Candyman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Beetlejuice. 5 GG for a 9/9 legendary creature insect beast with trample. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card. We don't care too much about that ability. You might ask yourself, why are we talking about a 7-drop? Well, that's because it has the ability to pay 1 and a green, discard it, and return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So Living End. This is basically a card that you can... It's like a ramp spell, right? Where what's nice is you have fetch lands, right? So you like turn 1, you go fetch land, and then turn 2, you play your second land, you discard Altanak, you get the fetch land back, and then turn 3, you have 4 mana to then have another 1 mana cycler plus the 3 mana cascade spell. And it's, I don't know, it hits big. It's a 9/9 trample. It seems like it's probably good enough for Living End. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I had this on my list last week for the same idea. I was like, does this Living End? Seems like a good Living End.
I think it does Living End. I was looking at this card for a while wondering, and there you go. I constantly forget that discarding a card, giant creature, is good for Living End.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2 of, right? Like, I don't think it's like a full pack, but
yeah, you wouldn't play a place up.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about another big creature. The title creature, or the main baddie from the set, Valgavoth, Terror Eater, 6 generic black, for a legendary creature, Elder Demon, with flying, lifelink, ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. If a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. During your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you do, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. 9/9.
Does this somehow still feel underpowered?
No.
Like, no, seriously.
No.
Like, it's a 9 mana 9/9 that does nothing on ETB. Nothing.
Shane, have you heard of Vein Ripper?
Mm-hmm. I know of Vein Ripper. He's cheated out, though.
Well, so is this.
Yeah, we're cheating this out. We're not casting this thing.
If you're lucky, yes, right.
So the only reason I looked at this card for a while because I was just like, okay, this is like the main card from the set. They probably put some effort into it for somebody for something. And then I was kind of like, could this be a Pioneer creativity target? giants. I know creativity in Pioneer is quite often combo-ish, where you're trying to get like World Spine Worm and what's the card? What are the 2 cards?
Not anymore.
Like you're not doing that.
Xanagoth or whatever.
Yeah. Are we not doing that anymore just because the deck's not good, or did something happen that I'm forgetting that makes it?
No, they're all about putting Vaultborn Tyrant into play now.
Oh, Vaultborn Tyrant. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, I think, too. I wonder a little bit if this is a card that could be in there, because it's unkillable, and it gains you life. And if you happen to kill some of your opponent's stuff, then you get to cast a bunch of cards for free.
Yeah, what really kind of sells it for me, because I've had a lot of people ask me about this, like the context where you said specifically Pioneer creativity. And I think what I like a lot about it is the permanent Ley Line of the Void. And specifically like against stuff like Is It Phoenix, where if you can like stymie off their early plays a little bit and then get this into play, they no longer have a graveyard for the rest of the game, because they are not killing this. And like they can't beat it. It's a 9/9 flying lifelink. They can't race it. They can maybe outsize it with like a Shredder Profs angle, but I don't know. Them not being able to like. You normally you would be like, okay, well, they could chump block with Phoenix and get it back, but because this ley lines them, they can't do that. So I don't know. Right. I think that there's definitely something here.
Yeah. And then I would love to have a little twofer here and talk about another demonic thing, which is Demonic Council, since we're right next to it. Let's talk about another demon. This card is sorcery. It's a generic and a black. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And if you have Delirium, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead shuffle your library for any card, put it into your hand, and shuffle. People freaked out because this is Demonic Tutor, kind of. I do think that there are some interesting demons that you can get a hold of with the fallback version of this. One is Scourge of the Skyclaves. Another one is Blade of the Oni. And you can also get Rafine with this.
Unfortunately, not Valgavoth.
Wait, Rafine's a demon?
Rafine is a demon. Yeah. Yeah.
I
mean, you can get Valgavoth too, but I don't think you want it with this one.
Unless you're, there's a card that I think is in our list that you could do something with this if it's in your hand.
With Demonic Council and
Valgavoth is an Elder Demon. Yes. Okay.
Yes. So you can get that. Look, I don't know. I thought this card was splashy for sure, but then I started to look at it a little bit and I was like, well, we have Diabolic Intent already in the formats that we care about. And like, is this card better than Diabolic Intent? I mean, it's different use cases, but like that card doesn't get played. And I also kind of feel like similarly, Traverse isn't the hardest thing in the world, Delirium is not the hardest thing in the world to get, but it's also not the easiest thing in the world to get. And people aren't even playing Traverse the Ulenwald these days, which does similar-ish things, like probably gets most of the cards that you care about, or some of the cards that you care about at least. So I don't know. I feel like this card is probably a pass, but I could be wrong if somebody thinks of a really great demon that you can get for 2 mana that you really, really care about.
What about Valgavoth?
Well, when we just saying
we want the creativity into that.
Yeah, you don't want a creativity into it.
Well, then just take creativity out of your deck.
And insert Kona Rescue Beastie.
Oh, right. Okay,
Boom.
Another card that we have. So now we have a payoff for these things being in your hand.
It's all coming together.
But this is standard now, Shane. This is all just standard.
Fine. Let's do it. Let's play standard. 3 and a green.
Maybe that's
4/3. Legendary Beast Survivor with Survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Look, I mean,
it's a 4/3. Don't forget.
That's a strong survival effect. Is this that far off from Through the Breach? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good. I mean, this is what Elvish Piper does, right, Dave?
Yeah, when you tap it, it puts a creature in play.
Except Elvish Piper just has green tap.
Yeah.
You got to work a little bit harder for this one.
Yeah, and you know what?
Except for you can do it the turn it comes into play.
Yeah.
Which you can't do with Elvish Piper.
That's true.
If you set up your chain right, get those Smuggler's Copters out.
I do feel like with Kona Rescue Beastie, hilarious name, You kind of have like a rule of 8 with that and Champion of Ronus, which is a card from Amonkhet for 3 and a green. You can exert Champion as it attacks when you do put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield. I just wonder if there's like this green-black mid-range deck where you can just like cheat Valgavoth. I'm only interested in
tutor
Valgavoth
for the
now.
Valgavoth.
This is a Valgavoth stand pod now.
It's pretty cool art on Valgavoth.
It is.
It's a cool moth demon.
Yeah, Mothman.
No,
Call
I'm
me.
I'm a big Kona fan. I think this is another one of my favorite cards in the set. I think that there's a lot of potential with this. I got to figure out what the shell is going to look like, but I want to try this with Omniscience and just go really, really deep in Pioneer. And I'm not trying to tap this one with the vehicle specifically. I'm trying to tap this one with Springleaf Drum and the one from Kamigawa that I always forget the name of, Moonsnare Prototype.
Yeah.
So there's 8 ways to tap this that produce mana, which, you know, when you're playing with elves and stuff like that, more mana, it's like a way to like ramp out Kona and just do like a fast Omniscience kind of thing. So I'm gonna be trying some shells with Kona and those cards specifically.
How about a shell with Kona and Valgavoth?
I mean, this is
Well, I put the Omniscience into play first, then I cast the Valgavoth.
Oh, fair.
this is likely more cute than good, but I think there's the potential to have some really fun leagues with this deck.
A lot of play points lost,
Yes.
but I'm used to it. You know, I'm used to
Play
it.
points lost, but fun had.
All right, see, we knocked out a bunch of cards on the list here. I feel like we're getting close to being able to kind of lock it down. Everybody want to do one-ish
Wow,
more?
Dave, we're only at like 112. You're in a
I
hurry.
know, but I'm just saying.
I'm
Just saying that we're running out of stuff on the list that I think is actually
I think we have
interesting.
a very good card.
I think
Which
Dave
one?
was just saying we have 24 hours to edit this episode before it has to go live.
It hasn't stopped me before. Devon, you put Exorcise on this list, and I think it's I think it's an interesting card. No, well, you
want to
put it there,
talk
baby.
talk some Exercise?
Yes.
Which,
Actually, I
what-
don't.
what-
I
what
want to talk about
exercise were you-
exorcism. I don't like exercise.
I see. We're doing leg day today. So this is 1 and a white sorcery. It's a pretty simple card. Exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. That's it. Pretty simple. Now, you know, remember the conversation we had earlier discussing, well, we're playing this Boros deck and we're going out of our way to try and find cards that can kill the One Ring and Flage. And this just does it for 2 mana. It is a sorcery. And unlike Skyclave, it doesn't get the body attached, so you don't like... It's harder to main deck a card like this, but I think this hits enough that I think there's potential for this to be a main deck card in the Boros Energy deck, maybe like 1 or 2 copies. What do you guys think?
It's pretty darn good. Yeah. A main deck. Exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. Flexible, not instant.
I mean, the sorcery thing definitely scares me off, but I'm taking a look to see like what is actually around that might be a similar.
Valorous Stance.
There might really not be anything else that's like this, though. I mean, here's the thing. We do have Revoke Existence in Modern already, which is just generic and a white sorcery, exile target artifact or enchantment. So the question is adding or creature with power 4 or greater enough to move this into playable territory?
There's a lot of Flage decks.
There are a lot of Flage decks right now. So for a specific reason like that, I guess I could see that being a thing. And exile is, of course, super important against Flage. So yeah, I could buy it. It is a bummer that it's, of course, an instant, but it could, or not an instant, but it could never be this price.
Yeah,
it was
there's
an
no way
instant.
they could make this an instant.
Yeah, I mean, Fate Forgotten exists. That is from Dragons of Tarkir, and that is exile target artifact or enchantment. It's the same card as Revoke Existence, but it costs 3 because it's an instant, and that is, we're not playing that. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe something in between could work.
Stan looks unsure.
Skyclave Apparition can attack, though.
It can. That is true.
And it's not limited to artifacts, enchantments, or big creatures. Skyclave can tag anything.
Yeah. small creatures, I guess, is the only thing. So it doesn't. The issue is it doesn't kill anything in the mirror besides Flage and Ring. It kills none of the 1-drops, and that's kind of problematic.
Yeah, and you're not even playing Lightning Bolt anymore, you friggin' animals.
I guess there's one of the other things that makes me think that this might work is that deck is already playing at sorcery speed because you're playing Static Prison and you're playing Chain to the Rocks. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is good enough.
I mean, yeah, if they're playing Thraben Charm, what's an exercise between friends?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the call. You guys sold me on it.
I'm not sold on it. Shane? Is Shane and Devon?
Devon, you sold me on trying it, we'll say.
I'm a good salesman. That's what they tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, and Thraben Charm is an instant.
Yes, it is.
Well, there you
Speedy go. Thrabens. Okay, so you all talked about that, that 4-mana green-white card that can potentially draw a lot of cards if it's tapped, and you randomly have stuff that's different, toughness, power on the top of your deck. Yet we are not talking about what I think could be a sleeper in this set, which is Nashi, Searcher in the Dark. It's a blue-black legendary rat ninja wizard, 3 of my favorite words, with Menace, 2/2. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you mill that many cards. You may put any number of legendary and or enchantment cards from among them into your hand. If you put no cards into your hand this way, put a 1/1 counter on Nashi. So, this has a low casting cost. It has some level of evasion. It mills, which can support a certain type of decks. And it has a failsafe, which is just making it stronger. Goes with Kaito. Seems kind of cool. I do not think this is a incredibly powerful card, but I think it is a cool card.
You love it.
I love Nashi. Why don't you marry it? I don't know, there's not a lot to say about this card. I think it supports synergies. It works independently if nothing else is going right. You're not going to probably win that game, but at least it's doing something. It's growing.
I almost wonder if there's some sort of Legends shell. I'm not trying to pair this card with enchantments, and more so I'm trying to pair it with other legendary creatures, because there's a pretty good base in Standard and Pioneer of the Rona. The Legends deck from last season was Rona, Honest Rutstein. I'm trying to think of what else that deck had, but you know what I'm saying, where they had that combo, does this
support that?
Titania,
does this support at all that brief the brief window we had into the combo whose name is escaping me?
Rona.
Yeah, Rona combo. Yes, exactly.
Rona
the one that
combo?
you said. Yes.
Yeah, and then you pair this with because this pairs well with Slowgurk and Titania because you're milling cards over. The milling cards works well with Slowgurk and Titania. So I mean there could be a deck there. I didn't even think about that application, but now that I'm thinking about it now, the fact that you get the legendary cards back into your hand is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cool card.
But I think back to Dive Down episode 1, it's isn't self-mill bad?
Well, the callback.
Wow.
We've come full circle.
Well,
300 episodes and you still haven't gotten that lesson.
If you think self-mill is bad, then I got one here that you may not like that much. Can we talk about Hedge Shredder real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Hedge Shredder. All right, so this one is 2 GG. It's a vehicle, 5/5. The crew cost is only 1, so pretty low. Whenever it attacks, you may mill 2 cards, and whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put them onto the battlefield tapped. So there's a combo with this and Hedron Crab, where you crab, target yourself, mill lands get back with Shredder trigger crab, target yourself, so on and so forth. So you can mill your whole deck with just Shredder and Crab. And if you have an Amulet of Vigor in play, all those lands come into play tapped. I'm sure you can figure out some way to kill your opponent from there. So I'm not an Amulet expert by any means, but part of me feels like just with Shredder and Crab being able to mill your entire deck, I'm sure you can figure something out there, and it's interesting to think about.
Inverter of Truth. That's not going to do anything.
Wow.
I got the cogs on Dave's wheels turning.
I don't even know what I'm like, is this work?
It does.
I'm not crewing it. So I don't have to do that. So I'm never getting the attack trigger. I'm just doing
Just the second trigger, yep.
Just the second ability, just the static.
Yeah, one or more land cards put into your graveyard from your library, put them onto the battlefield tap. So you mill, like you crab target yourself, those lands go to the graveyard, trigger the shredder, puts them into play. Lands coming into play triggers the crab mill you, mill cards, trigger, you get the idea.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it seems like, it's like, it's not deterministic, right? Like, because you can easily miss one.
Theoretically, yeah, you could.
But then on the other hand, you also will hit some where you have two that come into play, right? And so then you're going to get multiple coming back. So, man, I was not expecting to see this, but I think people will definitely play around with it. 4 seems kind of expensive to me for it, but I'm sure that there are ways to bridge that gap if it turns out to be worth it. Yeah. Combo.
There you go.
Combo alert.
Combo decks.
Self-mill combo. I mean, honestly, are you just milling your whole deck so that you can kill people with Vengevine and stuff like that?
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like a powerful thing in Crabvine.
It's the new
instead of worrying about the lands, just kind of like bin your whole deck and go.
Yeah.
And then play some free creature.
Salvage Titan. It's an artifact for Salvage Titan.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right, where are we going next?
What else do you guys have on the list? I think we got 2 or 3 cards left here. Devon, why don't you go again? Or Stan?
I'm really curious about Roaring Furnace. This was this was one of the only rooms that caught my eye. 1 in a red for an enchantment room. When you unlock this door, it deals damage equal to the number of cards in your hand to target creature an opponent controls. And then the other side is Steaming Sauna, 3 blue enchantment. You have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card.
Yeah.
I don't like how expensive Steaming Sauna is, but this feels like it's supposed to go into a control deck. Jeskai, or is it control? Probably. I don't know. It's interesting. It does a lot. It draws you cards. It kills creatures.
I mean, I think 1R to do like 5 damage in a control deck is really good, right? Especially when it has the upside of doing something else. So I agree that this is some kind of control setup kind of card. Obviously, even in a deck like that, you still have problems where your entire hand gets discarded or whatever, or not gets discarded. Like you're low on cards when you play this, and then it's just terrible. But I kind of thought maybe for Pioneer, this could be a thing that goes with Drakes or something like that could be okay. And then occasionally you bail yourself out by playing the second half when you need a little bit of a kick. But I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess not having a maximum hand size is like kind of cool when you start doing, you like copy Treasure Cruise with Galvanic or something like that. I don't know. It seems a little too expensive for decks like that, though.
Yeah.
I do like the removal spell have. Like, it's just a decent removal spell, similar to like it's like if it was just R1 sorcery, deal 5 to a creature. Like, that's a reasonable raid. You know, it's like Roast or something like that. Or I guess it's even better than Roast because it doesn't specify non-flyers. So it's like if you care about the removal spell, then the Steaming Sauna is just all upside, which maybe 5% of games you get to do that thing, but you know, you're just playing it for the removal spell that has a little bit upside. So I could see it.
Helps with all those games where you're discarding a hand size, you know what I mean?
You know what's really good, or you know what card you want to play that makes you not have a maximum hand size is the One Ring.
You're right.
Want to be discarding those cards?
I should really try that card finally.
You should.
There's one other room that I feel like we should mention. Walk-in Closet.
Yeah.
2 and a green. You may play lands from your graveyard.
Oh, that one.
And then the other side is Forgotten Cellar. 3 green. When you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn. And if a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile it instead. 2 powerful effects. It's what, Crucible and Yawgmoth's Will?
Yawgmoth's Will, yeah.
No sweet card.
On the same card?
I don't know if you've heard of it. Good, decent card. Yeah. I mean, the big thing about this, though, is that those cards tend to be powerful with rituals as part of your engine. And, you know, that's part of the reason that, like, Gaia's Will hasn't become a thing in Modern ever, is because we don't really have access to the stuff that really makes it go, enough free spells. And I think it's similar here, potentially. Although I could see somebody just really going off with Nykthos, and then being like, oh, I got a ton of mana, I just really need to refill, and so what I'm going to do is play Forgotten Cellar and then play a bunch of stuff out of my graveyard. Or, who knows, there's probably some kind of looping thing that I don't even know about that could happen once Nykthos gets to 75 mana, like, you know, the old school Teferi who chases the sun, or whatever loops that were going on at one point.
Yes.
Oh, I did not think about legend ruling and replaying a Nykthos from the graveyard. Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there could be some stuff going on there that could be weird, but we'll see.
Yeah, when I saw this card, and I think that if you're going to play this card, you want to prioritize the Crucible half of it, because I think that's the more powerful half. But I would look to see if there's any ways to play extra lands in Pioneer, because there are fetch lands like Fateful Passage and the Capenna stuff. So if you can pair extra land drops with fetch lands in this, maybe get a stew going.
Yeah.
Any last cards that people are chomping at the bits to discuss? Shane, I'm going to have to cut you off because I know you'd talk about the whole set if we let you.
No, I'm good. I did notice there's a 3 mana clone room, but we also have Glasspool Mimic that nobody plays, so that's a 3 mana clone land.
There's also a 3 mana Enchantress that's blue that I think could be good. It has flash, which actually makes it, you know, dodge removal a little bit. But, you know, I don't know if it's 3 mana is kind of a lot for a SRAM, but maybe it'll work.
Can I share with you my top 5? And then we can see if you have additions or subtractions from this list.
I have one card I want to say, and that is Manifest Dread. That's just a sorcery that says Manifest Dread on it. Yeah.
Good joke.
It says huge. They said the name of the album on the album, Energy.
Normally, we'd have to wait for a Modern Horizon set for them to name a card after a set, but they just put it in the set.
Yeah,
True.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that card as well. This is a weird set to me. Like, I think it feels very much like our typical standard sets these days, which is like, there's some interesting stuff that's going to maybe go in some decks. Maybe, right? It's just
That's magic, baby.
But it's like I don't think there's a lot of clear outliers here. I think there are a couple pretty solid cards. Like, I think Split Up is quite good in certain matchups. I think Silent Hall Creeper, Dave, you talked about that last week. I think Silent Hall Creeper is actually a good card. I think it's got it's got a pretty high floor and like a really high ceiling. Nowhere to Run, I believe that's the black enchantment. It's like a 1 and a black enchantment that like makes your opponent's creatures all lose like hexproof and ward, and it even does like -3/-3, which is like pretty awesome as a sideboard option. Screaming Nemesis and Exorcise we talked about this week. I think that they have applications. Exorcise might be better than we think, might be potentially worse, but those are the cards I think that I have my eye on as actually making some kind of impact. There might be more, but those are like the 5 I'm looking at.
Devon, what do you got?
All right, so I saw you gave a shocked look on your face when I put my top 5. These are my top 5, not necessarily like most powerful cards, but these are the ones that I want to play with the most. All
Okay.
right.
That's a great way to rank them.
So mine are Rip, which is the green-white 4/4 that we talked about. Exorcise. That one is, I think, maybe just like one of the most efficient cards. Kona, which is the Elvish Piper. I'm a huge fan of that card. The Green Overlord, which we didn't talk about today, but I heard you guys talk about last week. That's the one that puts the Everywhere land into play. I like that card a lot with the Enigmatic. The Overlords are so sick with Enigmatic. And then the Clockwork Percussionist. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with like Sacrifice and it's good with Gleeful Demolition. It's good with Witch's Oven, Deadly Dispute. There's so many things you can do with just like these little trinkets. And I just love playing with cards like that.
Yeah.
I just think the fact that it's 2 creature types really put it on kind of like my radar.
Yep.
Too, where it's like it's great for Delirium and other stuff too.
Why wouldn't you just play Bowmat Courier? Am I missing something? Too much effort? Like you have to pay the mana to get the cards?
You have to discard your hand.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Bowmat also isn't good with the same cards. Like it's not good with Gleeful because if you Gleeful Bowmat, you're not getting the card back, right? With Percussionist, if you Gleeful it or sack it, then you immediately get the card back.
Yeah, they just do different things. So yeah, I'm dumb.
I mean, here's a couple of cards I have on my list to add. Definitely Sheltered by Ghosts is high on what I would like to play with and what I think will be played a lot. And then the other one that I have is Pyroclasm, which I don't want to forget about. Yeah. Not that I want to play it, but it's going to be a huge thing in Pioneer, I think. I'm kind of interested if Unwanted Remake actually becomes something, which is the destroy target creature, its controller manifest dread. I'm very curious about if there's any possibility that card is reasonable. Probably not, but that's kind of all that I had that wasn't on earlier lists. I think Shane's list is pretty good. Too.
You know, there's an album called Ghosts by Sheltered. So this is Sheltered by Ghosts instead of Ghosts by Sheltered. Yeah.
No, I did not know that. That's funny.
It sounded like an album I knew. This was not the album I knew, but I found it by Googling, and now I'm laughing.
Did you know that there's an album by Ghost called Sheltered? No, there isn't.
Time's a flat circle.
Yeah.
Stanislav, you into anything? You like anything?
Well, I mean, Pyroclasm was one of them. A lot of the ones that I like most, we discussed last week. I mean, Kaito, the Planeswalker, I'm still pretty curious about. Razorkin Needlehead is a card I want to play in my commander deck. I think Silent Hall Creeper is pretty interesting.
Yep.
Curious to see what that unlocks and enables. Also, a commander card that I think might be fun is...
Whoa. Okay. I can't stop you.
You can't stop me. And this is not a card we talked about, but it's Marvin, Murderous
We did talk
Mimic.
about that. Because that's my
dog's
Marvin
name last week.
Remember?
Yeah, we talked about Dave's dog.
Stanislav's very distracted these days. It's okay.
We really should have mentioned this card and its applications for commanders.
I wish this was a visual medium. You could have seen Stan's face.
He was like, I will kill you all.
There's a reason we left out the commander aspect of it.
Because I don't understand it.
Abhorrent Oculus.
Yeah, you did like the Abhorrent
I forgot about that card.
That was an interesting
I
card.
think that card is cool too.
That's a cool card. Yeah,
it's the 3-mana 5/5.
That should maybe be in my top 5.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of sweet cards.
And like the lands, the rare cycle of lands. Like
I am so uncertain about those.
Me too. Curious.
And I'm not doubting you, Stan. I'm just like I doubted myself. I'm like, do I like these? Do I not like these? I just don't know. We'll have to see.
And time will tell. Ultimately, won't it?
Time will tell.
All right. Well, this was a jam-packed episode. 90 minutes of 4 topics. We got through a lot.
90 minutes of priceless content.
That's right.
Priceless, irreplaceable content.
Patreon.com/thedivedown.
And with that, let's wrap up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to submit a question to the podcast or just reach out in general, you can tweet us at The Dive Down, all one word, or email thedivedown@gmail.com. Shane whispered it, but I'll repeat it. If you want to support our show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also find Doomwake on twitch.tv/Doomwake. The O's are zeros, famously. Head over to heavyplay.com for some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats with the Equip Mag system. You're going to love these magnets. Use promo code TheDiveDown2024 to get 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com. And shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring the Dive Down. If you sign up for Mana Traders using promo code TheDiveDown_OBX, all one word, you'll get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. And save some money on paper cards from our friends at Nerd Rage Gaming with promo code DIVE8 to get 8% off your order over there. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and spooky, scary, men becoming wolves, boys becoming men.
You reversed it.
But we'll keep it.
That's the charm.
I wanted to grab a glass of water I forgot in the kitchen, but if you want to finish your thought while it's on the tip of your tongue.
Go. You don't have to be here for this.
But
I'm thirsty.
I don't know. Maybe
I'm
it's
parched.
important.
I'm parched.
Just leave and come back.
Well,
it's okay.
What are you going to say? Is it about me?
No, definitely not.
Is it about Shane?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, then I do want to hear it.